So I really want to get on here today and talk about something a little bit more serious, a little bit more of a sensitive topic. We definitely have to do a better job with taking care of our kids. And the reason I'm saying this is because they don't come with a manual. They don't come with an instruction booklet. There are no sirens or flashing lights that go on when danger comes around or anything like that. We pretty much have to move off of instinct. And a lot of times, if we're caught up in working and just being responsible adults, paying bills, managing other kids, managing a household, it gets difficult to dot every I and cross every T. My mother was a single mother, so I definitely understands that right there makes it even way much more complicated than it would be if there was a husband and wife in the same household or a mother and father in the same household. So here's a true story of a situation that happened to me when I was little. Just for a trigger warning, this is about being touched as a child. And so if anybody is out there, they're dealing with this, I'll leave a number at the end. You can call this and just pretty much work on yourself and work on healing. So here we go. So I was about 9 years old when my mother moved out of my grandmother's house, and she moved a few blocks away. It's kind of like the way I told y'all in my other video when I actually met my stepfather, and how I wound up meeting him, right? So long story short, there was a pizza shop downstairs in my mother's building, and in the back of the pizza shop, they had video games. So of course, as a little kid, I used to love playing video games, just like every other child. A lot of times you would go in there and that video game room would be so packed that you wouldn't even get a chance to play, especially if it had the older kids on there and they were playing for so long, your turn would never come. You know what I'm saying? You waiting while they winning and they going through boards and levels and stuff like that. Your time to play would never come. So I figured out one day when I was downstairs buying pizza for probably me and my mother, and I went to the arcade and it was nobody there. So I went ahead and I paid for the pizza. I got my mother's change. I went back there. I'm spending these quarters, you know what I'm saying? Like, she gonna pay for me to go down here and get this pizza when I could be outside playing, right? So I'm out there, I'm playing the video game. I'm playing, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing okay. But mind you, I only had about maybe 2 quarters left, right? This is when video games was a quarter. I'm in there and I'm playing the video games, and now one of the guys, I believe it was one of the owners of the shop, he came to the back. He was just kind of watching. He was standing there first. He had his hand on his hip or whatever, and I'm thinking that he watching me play the game. He's just walking around. He didn't even seem like he spoke English. I believe I only heard him speak with a heavy Italian accent. I'm in there playing, I'm playing, and then I lost. He went like this, like to wait a minute, and he went and got some more quarters from out the register. So I'm like, yo, perfect. He reaches down to put the quarter in the machine, and on his way back up, he touches me. At first I thought, maybe it was an accident. Maybe I'm standing too close. Maybe his adult arm brushed up against my area and you know what I'm saying? It was a mistake. So I didn't really think anything about it. This is the thing that I want y'all to realize, and realize this with your kids. A lot of times, kids are not going to challenge adults. Kids see adults as authority figures, so you're not gonna challenge an adult and say, "Hey, you just touched me in a private place." They're not gonna say that because we're taught and we're programmed to look at adults as authority figures. So here's this authority figure that I know he works in the store, he owns this shop, and he accidentally touched me. At least I thought it was an accident, right? So I'm playing. This time I'm doing a little bit worse, right? He puts another quarter in the machine, and then he grabs me. He didn't grab me. He grabbed me, a handful of me. Now I'm like, that wasn't a mistake. He's doing this on purpose. So I continue to play the game, and I'm just acting like, nothing ever happened. Because what do you say to that? As a kid, what do you say to that? Parents, please talk to your kids. Ask your kids specific questions when they come home from school. Has anybody touched you? Has anybody made you feel inappropriate? Has anybody come into the bathroom while you were in the bathroom? Has anybody asked you to undress? Has anybody been undressed around you? Ask these questions that might bring you to more questions that might reveal something that the child is too afraid to tell you. I never told my mother about any of this. I thought maybe it was happening because I stole her 2 quarters. As I'm playing the game, I'm losing, and he's still putting quarters in the machine. Every time I would lose, he would put another quarter in the machine, and then he grabbed me again. It was almost like he was trying to arouse a 9-year-old child, so to speak. It was weird to me because this is an adult and he's an adult male. You know, after that last game or whatever I played, and it came to a point where, you know, he wanted me to play again. And I was just like, nah, I gotta go upstairs. I gotta take my pizza upstairs. So I took the pizza upstairs or whatever, and it's something that stuck with me for decades because I never told my mother. You know, I never told my father. I never even told my stepfather or my grandmother or any of my older cousins. I never told anybody until I became an adult and I had kids, and I realized the PTSD that I have from that instance caused me so much anxiety as a parent and protecting my kids. Like I said, ask those deep diving interview questions, but you never want to get to a point where you're so lax that you don't know where your child is, you don't know who's there, you don't know who's spending the night at the sleepover, you don't know if there's brothers in the house when your daughter is sleeping over at an all-girls sleepover. I got to a point where if my daughters wanted to spend the night at one of their friends' houses, I had to know the father in the house. I had to put on this New York hat, so to speak, to let them know, like, so anybody violate, you know what I'm saying, on any level or whatever, it's gonna cost them real big. The thing that I had to get over was my fear. I never liked for anything to just be out of my control. And that's one of the things that as parents, we start to struggle with. As the older the child gets, the less control we feel like we have. And then we start having to battle and deal with our own anxiety and our own skeletons in our closet, so to speak, of things that we never healed from, things that we never talked about. This is really the first time that I've ever talked about this in public. And one other point that I wanted to add, my next door neighbor actually alluded to something similar happening to him and his little brother. So this told me that he's being inappropriate with the kids. The craziest thing about this is when me and my mother would stop downstairs to the pizza shop together and he was in there. I don't know if maybe he didn't remember me. I don't know if all of us just looked the same, but he never said anything. He never nodded. He would just stand there and have small talk with my mother like everything is everything. And I'm like, this is the man that touched me. If y'all got anything like this that you're dealing with from your past, you've never talked about it, let me tell you something, man. Get you some professional help. Start off with a therapist, move to a psychiatrist, talk to somebody that you trust. If you got EAP at work, I advise you seek EAP. You know, get it out in the open, save another child. Parents, please protect your kids. I know you're doing the best that you can do, just like my mother, but especially single mothers, do the best you can. Fathers, be involved in your kids' lives. Hang around with your kids. Go to the store to get that slice of pizza or play the video games with your kids. This is what my experience was, and hopefully I can save 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 more of y'all. Save, like, comment, subscribe to this video, and until next time.